就是看不着，这这这这
Come on, man.
Alright. Need the cakes. Make the fax machine.
Oh no, yeah. You got that sorted now?
No, I can't say it. Half an hour away. Spin it tonight. Tomorrow I'm going to buy. See the box. I've been to buy a 55 tomorrow and slow. So I might just stay an extra day. I can't say 1 week so I can go and buy that tomorrow. What is that?